I almost don't want to comment on anything to do with this idiocy. That being Trump spending tens of millions of taxpayer dollars to have a grotesque military parade to celebrate his birthday. With 24 tanks and scores of other military vehicles rolling through the streets of Washington, D.C. The kind of gaudy, insecure dictator shit that we don't do in the United States. Sharon says, with so many other horrific and actually deadly decisions being pushed through, the toddler's parade isn't worth the energy. And Sharon, I totally understand what you're saying here. Yes, we should not be giving his parade any of our energy. We should not be watching it on TV when it happens, and we should definitely not be sharing about it on social media while it's happening, and we definitely should not be attending in Washington, D.C. However, I think it's really important that we do talk about this. We talk about what a giant waste of taxpayer dollars this is. We talk about how these kind of self-congratulatory military parades are not something that we do in the United States. These are things that dictators do. These are things that kings do. These are things that petty tyrants do. We don't have a dictator in the United States. We don't have kings in the United States. Now, we currently have a president who is trying to be all of those things. He also would love to be seen as Caesar and said he wouldn't mind being the next pope. He thinks he'd be a good pope. Right? These are how fragile megalomaniacal men operate, right? They just want to associate themselves with power, and they want these big, grandiose displays in order to prop up their fragile egos. And they want the taxpayers to pay for it to the tune of $45 million. I've seen other estimates as high as $90 million. And let's not forget that Trump has already told Washington, D.C. that they are responsible to pay for the cleanup after this parade, and they are responsible to pay for the repairs to the roads because tanks driving down the street is going to damage the roadways. But he's going to stick the city of Washington, D.C. with that expense. And it's equally important to talk about the fact that the American people are going to be spoiling his birthday party. He wants all of that attention. He wants all of that adulation, and we are not going to give it to him. That's why we are having no King's Day celebrations, because Trump is not our king. This is a country of, by, and for the people. And so we, the people, will be celebrating ourselves on that day, June 14th. We will be reclaiming the American flag for us, the people, reclaiming Lady Liberty for us, the American people, reclaiming this nation for us, the people. That's why I really am encouraging folks to go to nokings.org to find one of the hundreds and hundreds of events around the nation. It's really important that we have this massive nationwide show of resistance against Trump, of millions of people standing in public opposition to Trump's horrific vision for America. Millions of people standing in public opposition to Trump's notion that he gets to be a king. Millions of people standing up for the Constitution. So we are all going to be having no King's Day celebrations. Trump's petty toddler parade is not worth the energy. What is worth our energy is a broad-based, strong, united coalition of millions of Americans standing together in solidarity to celebrate us, the people, to fight for us, the people. To say, we want a country that works for the American people, not for corporations, not for the oligarchs who are exploiting us. We are going to ignore the actual event because he is desperate for attention, but we're not going to ignore the harm that he is doing, the authoritarian overreach that he is engaging in. We are not going to ignore the fact that he is trying to wreck all of the things that we care about so he and his rich cronies can get even richer. That's what No King's Day is about. It is about celebrating the American people and restoring a country that works for us. It's about saying we have no kings in the United States. We want a country free of oligarchy. We want a country where the average person is not being exploited so a couple of super rich guys can get even richer. Because when the people show up in large numbers, guess what? That is a public signal to all of those pillars of support under Trump, all of those corporations, all of those institutions, all of those collaborators in government, that the people are opposed to this. It is a reminder that we are building and flexing our muscle. It is a visual demonstration that the power of the people is greater than the petty people in power. And that is hugely important when it comes to pressuring those pillars of support to withdraw their cooperation from the illegal things Trump is doing. So no, we're not going to give our energy to Trump's birthday parade on June 14th. What we're going to do is we're going to have our own No King's Day events. That's where we're pouring our energy into. We're pouring our energy into the American people, into the liberation of this country from a fascist takeover. We're pouring our energy into a country that is of, by, and for the people.